All right, guys, and welcome to Casey Needs a Co-host Zoomvivor edition. Today is the Deep Dive podcast where I have a special guest, Lauren from Z04. How you doing today, Lauren?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me come on. I'm excited to break down this episode. It was an interesting one, especially because you got a little backlash from the previous one with that vote, and then roll into another interesting tribal council.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you just kind of kicked it right into gear. So actually, let's talk about the aftermath of the vote out last week. What did you think?
I think that it was a great move for that group of people to align together to get what they ultimately wanted. And the funniest part that I took away was Erica, girl, had no idea how to work her messenger. That is the biggest thing you have. That's how you have to communicate with people in this game. And the fact that she missed that, that could have tanked her game. She could have gone home because of that. And so it was so crucial when she did figure out her mistake. Then she went, reached out, and explained it to Costas. And he understood. And now they seem to be vibing with each other. So, you make a mistake. If you're able to recover, great for you.
Yeah. It was kind of interesting that quickly, though, it was like up relationship repaired. Because you're watching that, and I said that during last week's podcast or the podcast that we did on Saturday. I was like, that has to be what the situation is that it's in her spam folder, her messenger request, and that's exactly why she hasn't seen it. But luckily, he Kostas is not as emotional as I thought he was,
Mhm.
because last week he was getting really upset. It almost seemed like it was going beyond the point of logic. But like I said, I'm happy that he's like, okay, cool, we're fine now, and like that the point was just really quickly glanced over.
It sounds like it's a clean slate, which is beneficial for both of them. You really don't want to be, bumping with anyone in the game. I've experienced that myself. It's not the best type of gameplay. So you want to be vibing with everyone on the tribe because you never know when a swap is going to happen and what people you're going to have to use later on. So if you're clashing with someone and you get swap screwed and they're with you, they're going to jump to the other side and be like, sorry, I'm going to vote you out. I don't have allegiance to you.
Yeah. And I mean, with that whole tribe, you can definitely see there were a lot of hurt feelings at the end of it. Kostas was not only upset, with Erica about things before, but they were, Sherry had some interesting points about Kostas. And so they're all upset. And then you have the two Filipino girls that are kind of upset that they were left out of the vote and that Simon was voted out. So that tribe is just a mess. And then I feel like at the very center of that tribe, you do have Sherry and Dakota, but more so Dakota. And Dakota's he almost has this cocky, personality about it all. Not super cocky, but cocky enough. And I mean, he could also be making a number of really bad mistakes. And then you also have Kira on the side, who doesn't really seem like she's involved in a whole lot.
Yeah, she doesn't seem that she's too involved right now, but she can be a key component because I think she's going to be a number in some people's games right now because they know that she's going to be loyal. And I think that's the type of gameplay she's going for at the moment. But speaking of Dakota, I will give him credit for this. He has a great read on his observance of people and what they're doing. Because in this type of game, when yes, you have the breakout rooms, but if you have Messenger, say you see someone's head pop down, they're talking to someone, their head pops up, and if you notice that another person's head goes right down, you know instantly those two people right now are connecting and talking to each other.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll be honest, that's something that I never really thought about when I was playing. I mean, because I felt like everyone's heads were constantly down. But yeah, I mean, with this season, you see more of social interactions on the screen. So yeah, you can easily identify that. Like I said, I never thought about that.
Yeah, so for his game right now, I think he's in a good spot. But then again, you have people such as Danny and Kat who they felt left out of the vote. And that's what I'm talking about with the swap. You really have to do damage control and say, hey, was for the betterment of the tribe. Simon wasn't good for us. There wasn't good vibes there. He was shady with what he was doing. And then you have to reel people back in. If you're not able to do that, then it sucks, but that's the way the game works.
Yeah, and with that too, Kat did make a point that, despite the whole idol, situation, they probably needed Simon. Which granted they ended up winning the challenge, which we'll get to in a moment, but she was like, hey, he was actually doing well on challenges. Why did we get him out? And I mean, to our knowledge, Simon was going to be loyal. You know, he wasn't playing any sort of bad social game. So, I mean, we also could tell in the previews there's going to be a swap. So I guess at this point, it is a moot point to even discuss whether or not Simon should have gone home. But it seemed like I agreed with Kat on saying that we probably should have kept him in the reality of it. But also going to Danny and Kat, them feeling left out of everything. Two Filipinos versus a bunch of, you know, foreigners, some American, some whatever. Now we have a majority Filipino on the other side. That just could help solidify an all Filipino alliance if there is going to be one, which we already have the Bisaya alliance. It was one of the first alliances discussed in the game, which is an all Filipino, but even more specifically, it's very regional in the Philippines. So we'll talk about, let's start, talk about that other tribe. What do you think about the other tribe so far?
I like the dynamic on the other tribe. There's definitely some people that I think they feel that they're in a leadership position, but there's other people on the tribe that are also smart enough to recognize it. For instance, Charlene and Bing, they know that Bads thinks he's running the show right now. So they're able to observe, hey, I'm going to let him feel like he's running it, and then maybe potentially down the road, make my move on it.
Yeah. And I mean, that was something that was also discussed with Charlene, like probably in episode 2, episode 3 as well. Like she clocked Bads so quick, you know, and that also goes back to the point that you made about Dakota. You know, Dakota's pretty perceptive. I actually find that a lot of people this season are very perceptive. Charlene, Kaneda, Bing, even Simon, or not Simon, Brian to an extent, you know, like everyone has a really good read all in all on all the other players in this season so far.
It's a great cast. It's a fantastic cast. I think the casting was awesome with this because there's so many different people with different personalities and they bring something different to the table. You have your outspoken people, you have your people that are laying in the background waiting to make their move, but they're not just sitting there and not going to do anything. They're thinking and they're able to tell us in the confessionals, I'm just buying my time. It's too early in the game to make a crazy move. You have to stick with the numbers while you have them, but then you have to figure out how you're going to solidify people to work with you towards the end game and ultimately get those people to trust you.
Yeah. And I mean, with that exact statement, which is what pretty much Charlene said, I'm very curious, you know, ultimately, is Charlene going to truly stay in the shadows and then come out of the shadows when she needs to? Will she ever get the chance to come out of the shadows, or will she just be too scared and the entire game she'll just stay in the shadows and never do anything? Like, is she going to be a dud ultimately? Because I hope not, because it does seem like she's got great insight and I want to see more and I want to see good gameplay from her ultimately.
I'm excited for Charlene. Remind me again, she does have an idol, correct? Okay, I'm not sure because I thought she found something. Maybe it was episode 1 or episode 2 when she went individually into the breakout room, but I could have the wrong person. Because I was going to say, if, for instance, she does have an idol, I think she's smart enough to play it correctly because she's going to have the insight from different people from other alliances that might tell her, hey, the votes are maybe going on you. And she's the type of person that I think would be able to play that correctly because you have to rely on other people to give you the insight that you could potentially be getting blindsided.
Anyway, before we move on, you know, so far with this tribe has been my favorite, the Moata tribe. I think if that's how you say it. You know, they've generally
Moata, I don't know.
overall they've had you know, my favorite group of players. Like individually, you know, I really like Charlene, I like Kaneda. Bads has been my favorite since the beginning. I'm really starting to like Bing. Brian seems to be really intelligent. They're all pretty, you know, interesting. And I'm really starting to like I really in the past 2 episodes have been liking Ming. But anyway, with that aside, let's kind of jump into the challenge. You know, we see this is, you know, another Rebus puzzle, something that has kind of been a staple for Zoomvivor the past few seasons. What did you think of the tribe's performances?
Well, what you see here is it's almost a flashback to what happened in our season because the tribe that guessed it, I think they were informed by somebody else what it was, but they just guessed it incorrectly. And then it came back onto the other tribe where they were able to guess it It was actually, I think it was me who had to guess it. And I was just nervous because I didn't want to make a mistake. But I think it was ultimately kind of evenly matched. But I will say the Mota tribe, they got more of the answers correct. And the thing about it is, right when you're picking the numbers, my opinion is picking the side ones. I think the side ones are the more crucial ones, the 1, 9, 7, and 3, whatever they are, because the middle, I think you can suss out better.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. And you can definitely see that towards the very end of the challenge once they have all the pieces together and then the challenge ends. I think ultimately with this I love this challenge. It's kind of it's a nice, mental challenge. And with this challenge, I don't really think there was a whole lot to say about it. And I think you pretty much said it all. More or less everyone was performing well. But I think the most noteworthy thing is that Bads fucked up the challenge.
Yeah, so I'm not sure completely who said in their messenger what the answer was. And apparently he didn't see it. And it goes back to being able to be on top of your messenger. You have to be aligned with what everyone else is thinking. And I think that's why when you get to that pressure moment, you want to go with your gut. He went with his gut, made the wrong answer. And once the other tribe is able to get one more square, it's game over because they're going for that square that you fucked up essentially, because he said immune. And so they're saying, all right, it's not that one. So I'm going to pick number 7 and I'm going to be able to see what it is, get an easy win. And that's what they did. So I think you can't really dig too deep into it, but yeah, Bads made a mistake. They ended up losing and have to go to tribal council for it, but that's the way the game works.
Yeah. And I mean, clearly he has positioned himself, well enough that did not mean a whole lot, which also this just goes back to what I discussed in the second episode of the podcast with Karen and Jumed. Like, I really do feel as if in a lot of these games, being a challenge beast, at least in the pre-merge, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. How many times, like, I mean, out of all the games that I've watched, how many times has it actually really come to anything where someone fucks up a challenge time and time again and they're still not voted out because people value the social connections or the number more than the ability to perform well,
I think we talked about this last season where these challenges are such a crapshoot that you have no idea what to prepare for. They could be a memory challenge. It could be a small endurance challenge. I mean, last time we were balancing freaking a paper plate with ping pong balls. I don't do that in my daily life. It's not a normal Survivor season where you can say, okay, these are challenges we're probably going to see. These ones, it could be anything. And if a person messes up in one, they're probably not going to mess up in a different one because they're probably somewhat good at it. It's just not all these challenges are for everyone.
Yeah. 100%. And I mean, also with these games, you have people using different materials, when you're actually using material objects, one person could actually be using, if it's like a cup challenge, for instance, like red solo cups, someone could be using like a store brand cup, very different in its flimsiness, its actual structure, especially with the very bottoms of the cup. Sometimes they're round, sometimes they're square. It's just different. But yeah, it's these challenges vary. It really is hard to prepare and really determine who's going to be, crucial for the future of the tribe, so it's just really hard to tell. But in this situation with the whole messenger thing, Bads severely fucked it up, made him lose a turn. And really, because of that, they lost.
Right on. And the only thing I will say you can study for is if you notice there's staple challenges season to season, prepare yourself for that. If you're not ready for that, that's your own damn fault.
Yeah. And I mean, I know from the preseason assessments and even a little bit from, the after season stuff, which I'm not going to get into, that some people have seen previous Zoomvivor seasons, so they kind of knew the general ins and outs of what was going on. And some people have never played a game before, like Ming's never. I'm 99% sure Ming has never played a single org before. She was in the Filipino Idol, like our American Idol. But that's the closest I think Ming has had to any sort of reality show. So
that's the thing too. You have to be able to see which people it's their first game because they don't know how these things work. It's a long freaking game. we're watching episodes. But what you fail to realize is we're on episode 4 now. They're probably in hour 6, hour 7. At this point, it's exhausting to play. We're only seeing the 45 minutes that happen, but we're not seeing everything in the entire day.
Yeah, 100%. And especially for a newcomer, that is very exhausting and very unexpected. I mean, you kind of have an idea of what's going to happen, but especially for the Philippines, it's like at this point, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning for them.
Mm-hmm.
If they've had a work day beforehand or just had to, generally go out and do any sort of errands, it is beyond exhausting.
I agree. And that's the thing. A time difference can very much so impact it. Yes, on the American side, many people are getting up early, but I think getting up early is easier than staying up super late because when day one ends, yeah, you're going to go to sleep for a little bit, but you really can't because you have to talk to people if you make the merge. You can't just shut your phone off. You have to talk to everyone. So it's an ongoing 2-day event.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also, I mean, it all depends on the person, but yes, most normal people, it's much easier to get up in the morning. For me, I'm a night person. I hit my second wind. I'll stay up till 8, 9 in the morning sometimes. So for me, that's easy. But, getting up in the morning and being alert and ready, that's freaking exhausting. But especially with this season, having people from all around the world, Greece, Vietnam, or well, actually Simon was in Switzerland, but Greece, Switzerland, the Philippines, the West Coast, the Central Time, Costa Rica, Paraguay, like everywhere. I mean, it is all across the board in hours, so everyone's dealing with this in a much, much different way.
Props to James for figuring out the time zones and when he wanted to start, because that has to be the most difficult thing. And also making sure everyone shows up.
Yeah, definitely. And they did actually start this season an hour earlier than when we started, or even probably this season before. I'm not really sure when Z3 started, but I'd assume it was the same time as ours. But anyway, kind of moving on real quick. So we already started to dip into the after portion of the challenge a bit. So as we already did discuss, Charlene does have the idol. But I did write initially the sound effect for when they were in that breakout room looking at the QR code, like, oh, someone already found the idol. And there's that chime, I don't know what you want to call it, on Charlene, and she smiles. So I thought that was, a little interesting editing, that James slipped in there.
You know what could have been cool from that situation? You saw how people held up their phone saying there was nothing for you. If I'm sitting in that room, I'm making everyone scan that and hold up their phone. Because then if one person had already gotten it, you might be able to know.
That's a very interesting thing. That's a very old school Boston Rob type thing. It's like empty your fucking bag. That's what that reminds me of. Question is, would people be, reciprocal of that? Would they actually listen to what you were asking?
Well, if you want to say prove your trust right now, hey guys, who has it? Show your phone. Because I think 2 people at least showed their phone. I think maybe 3. But if you're in that situation, I would just say, hey guys, why doesn't everyone show their phone? Because everyone's sitting in there. They see the QR code. So they know it's sitting right there. Someone has it.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, someone might have just joined the room, or if they found the QR code way, way in advance, an hour before. Because I actually don't 100% know how the QR code works, if I'm being honest. Even though I was on production, I mean, I'm not privy to every single detail. And even in our season, I only made it to the end of one advantage, but someone already got it, which was Rain. She got it before I did. So I actually don't really know how those work all in all.
Oh, don't ask me. I didn't find shit on our season. I I was given a steal a vote, but no, I don't know how the QR code works either. Every time I tried it, I got nothing.
Yeah. It was just like I said, the one time it was like, you search the hollow tree and it's empty, But yeah, with that though, yeah, there were 3 people, and I'm actually surprised that they were even able to show their phone. Because I know there's a lot of orgs where you're not allowed to show what's on your phone, period. But once again, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of this, even though I was on production, but clearly they were allowed to show their phone, but no one suspects that Charlene has it. So good for her. And then you have three people that can prove that they don't have it, or well, I don't know, use air quotes, but they prove that they didn't have it.
Well, another good strategy too is if someone asked you to show the QR code, maybe you refresh, scan it again if you were the one to find it, and then you have your proof there.
Yeah, yeah. Any way to, snake your way around it. Which also, right around that scene, there was another point that was brought up by Bads, which seems to be the general theme of this episode, even the title of this episode, deserve or deserving. They keep talking about, we're voting out who's the least deserving, or this person is not deserving. Those are pretty bold statements to make ultimately. And time again in numerous orgs and even in Survivor, oftentimes people that get voted out aren't necessarily the least deserving. They're probably actually among the most deserving, and that's why they're voted out. So it's very interesting to hear people even say, I'm voting this person out because they're the least deserving, or they shouldn't be here, they're not deserving. It's such an absolute statement to make.
I'm curious about that as well, because they didn't go in full depth what they meant by least deserving. Because if you look at a vote prior to that with Andres going home, I didn't think he was the least deserving person on the tribe at that time. So if you're going to say someone's the least deserving, explain to me why they are. Because in this type of season, with how fast paced the game is, everyone there is deserving. If you're able to hack it and stay up that long and be able to talk with people on your tribe and integrate yourself with others, I don't see anyone as not being deserving. I do think, though, when you get to the merge and get towards the end game, then you can determine that. But this early on, no.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I was literally going to say that next. You can't really determine in the beginning of the game like this. A lot of people are lying low, and they're not trying to come out of cover to get shot at. So yeah, it really is difficult to determine who is deserving and who's not. Although it's very interesting, which we'll now dive into the tribal portion of this episode. Once Ming was voted out, she said that she was the least deserving, and that she votes kind of personally, but other people don't vote on the personal side, they vote on the strategic side. Now, Ming also said that the reason why she was the least deserving was because she wasn't as active, which is kind of something you saw in the edit, and is kind of something that I saw when I was watching the game, because this was the tribe that I was actually following. Yeah, very interesting that someone would even admit that about themselves, but
I'm surprised she did say that, because I actually did like Ming. I think what you talked about earlier, if this was the first one that she's ever played in, that could have something to do with it. You really don't know how to go about it. Should I be talking to this many people at once? However, I think it would have been great for someone on that tribe. This person doesn't know the game that well, potentially. Why don't I bring them in, have them work with me? They probably are going to be a loyal number because you brought them to your side. That's another component to think about.
100%, but it's also a question of, does anyone know that this is Ming's first game?
That's true, because on our season there's a couple people that said I've never played in anything like this, so you knew that. So yeah, that's something we would have to ask people within that tribe. Was she open about that? Because if she was, I take them in as a number for sure.
Yeah, and I think as the episodes went on and you saw her confessionals, it seemed like she was getting better and better at reading people and reading the game. But I think ultimately Ming might not be built for this game. Especially with like the fact that she actually shouldn't have gone home. If she would have just voted for who she was supposed to vote for, Manu would have been the one leaving, not her. But she threw her vote on Bads for the millionth time, which does actually paint an even larger target on his back.
It does paint a target on his back. People might not know specifically that she was the vote time and time again for him. I think for her, that just comes from her getting lost in the shuffle. As she said, wasn't talking to that many people. So she might not have known, hey, this is where I should be throwing my vote. But that's where I got to give Manu credit. Potentially, he could have been told, I don't know, vote. Maybe Ming reached out to him and said, maybe we're on the bottom. Let's vote for Bads. If he would have done that, that would have screwed his game. He made the right choice for voting for her, because that's why he's still in the game.
Yeah. 100%. And he, at least, as we did see in the confessionals, he wasn't messaging everyone on the tribe, but it seemed like he was messaging the people that counted the most. It's
Mhm.
just a matter of moving forward. He needs to make sure that he's messaging everyone, which was something that even when I played the game, I messaged everyone. There was one single person in the entire game I did not message, and that was Missy. But once again, I mean, I've said it before in a previous episode of the podcast. I, to this day, still don't know what Missy did in the game. I don't know in terms of actually playing the game or in the episode, but from what I hear, Missy is actually a really experienced org player who had won numerous orgs.
That's what I've heard as well. She's very experienced, but I do want to touch with on Manu real quick.
Mhm.
I actually really like him. I'm rooting for him. I think, as we saw in the preview, there's going to be a tribe swap. This is going to give him new life because I think if he would have stayed on that tribe, maybe he could have maneuvered and gotten himself through another tribal council, but you don't know because numbers are numbers at the end of the day. And if people have pre-existing relationships and know each other, you're going to stick with what you know. And the thing about that is you might have been screwed over by someone in a prior game, but at the beginning, work with each other to get you to where you need to be and then slit their throat.
Oh yeah, 100%. The question is he experienced enough to, make moves like that? I don't 100% know his history. I know he's played, I think, some games in the Latin community, but I'm not 100% sure. But I think, a tribe swap could be either very detrimental or, be his saving grace because he's already started to build those relationships in this new tribe. And obviously he had seemingly the majority to be able to save himself in this vote.
But he has to realize it was a split vote. So he knew that he was the backup plan. And you never want to
Oh,
make
yeah.
someone feel as though that they're the backup plan. So that's also another thing where he could feel, you know what? I could have, if Ming had an idol, I was gone. So I was going to be a casualty to them no matter what. So they guess they don't need my vote. I'm going to go switch and try and work with some different people. You never want to make someone feel that they're on the bottom.
Yeah. And clearly, I think Ming also part in part might have thought that she was on the bottom as well, because as we did see in the confessionals, they did clearly outline who was on the bottom of their alliance, and Ming was one of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I feel like this tribal was super telling in a sense, but also at the same time, a lot of really nothing happened. If that makes sense. We got some stuff, but we also didn't get a whole lot.
Not too much. I would say the episode prior to a little bit more fiery, my liking. That's a little bit my style. I like outspoken, have to be a little edgy. It's fun. So far, I'm really enjoying the season. It's been great. As I said earlier, the cast is phenomenal. So many good, even people with the storylines and how they're able to explain their gameplay. It's incredible. And I'm excited to see what happens because there's some gamers here and you don't know who's going to be able to come out on top because I think people are going to make moves, but then in turn with that move, they might be the next target after that because people are smart enough to say this person made a move. Now they have to go next because I can't sit with them at the end.
Yeah. And on that note, let's actually move into the Zoomy for the episode. So for me, I had 3 names down: Manu, Charlene, and Kanita. I am still kind of figuring out who deserves that, the recognition for this episode. Any thoughts for you?
So I kind of changed my thought process as we talked through. I'm thinking Manu only because he was smart enough to make sure he voted for the person that he needed to. Because if he would have voted any other way, he would have gone home. Because if there would have been a tie, I'm pretty positive he would have gone on the revote. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, if there would have been some type of tie, I think he would have gone on the revote. So essentially, he saved himself. So I have to give it to him. If you're able to perceive what's going on and make sure you vote in the right direction to keep you in the game, you got to have it.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm actually going to ultimately agree with you. He made, a number of really good points in the confessionals. He made a really good point about the Filipinos in the tribal council portion of this episode, where he said, if you pick off me, then you're going to send the signal to the other people on the other tribe that it is an all Filipino thing. And what are they going to do in response? They're going to pick off the other Filipinos. So, you know what? Ultimately, yeah, I agree. I think Manu deserves the Zumi Award. Charlene and Kanita, they did great this episode, but it was more about their thoughts rather than their actions. And I think Manu stood out on that aspect of the game.
For sure. And I didn't talk enough about Kanita, but I do really like her and I'm excited to see what her gameplay is moving forward. She has really good personal connections with people. And that's the thing about this. There's really on this cast, there's really no duds. I think everyone's there to play and there to bring it and wants to ultimately win.
I think there might be like a couple duds, but I'm not gonna throw their
names. I said
there.
Really no duds. So I mean, when I say really no duds, yeah, there's some here and there, but you have to give people a chance. We're only on episode 4, and we see that in many Survivor seasons. People are hidden, and then they come out and they start doing things.
I mean, yeah, that's 100% true. Some people don't kick their game until the merge, and I mean, but everyone that we've seen so far that has been booted out, they've all had some sort of shining moment. Even Josh, for as little as he was in the game, you know, he had his little outspoken piece, which is ultimately why he was voted out. But I wouldn't say he's a dud or anyone else really. But yeah, I'm hoping to, like I said, without dropping names, I'm hoping to see more out of some people with this.
Got to give them a chance. You know, that's the thing. Sometimes the best strategy is to lay low at the beginning, get in with the numbers, and then come firing out like a flash of lightning and kill everyone else. I don't know. I'm excited. Like I said, it's been good so far. There's definitely people that I'm rooting for. I'm interested to see what Sherry does in this game because Sherry is someone that I do not think you want to be on her bad side. And I want to point this out as well. She did mention that she thinks her and Erica are kind of playing similar and they might clash with each other at some point. And I don't know if they put that in the edit to show that that could potentially happen. But if it does, I think it'll be exciting.
Very interesting. Yeah, with Sherry, I mean, I actually wrote a couple notes for Sherry and I completely forgot to speak more on her. I don't quite see, and you know, there's a lot to the game that I don't see in general, but I don't see the similarities between her and Erica. Erica seems like she's socially way too, you know, nice, which is what people actually really like, and hopefully she comes off trusting. Sherry is a fucking, you know, she's fireworks, like multiple. She's an explosion. You know, she says what she says. She's very insightful. And she also, from what I know, she is the most experienced org player in this season.
Yeah, when I saw that Sherry was on the cast, I go, well, how in the world did they get Sherry? What the heck? Yeah.
Oh, you're familiar with her?
I've heard of her. So yeah, just in the org community. Because so many of these people, they play in different games. And I know Erica, this is the first time that she's ever played in one.
Yeah. She played like a friend one, but I mean, that's not.
It's a different platform. But yeah, no, Sherry's the one that compared herself to Erica in an earlier episode that they might be kind of playing the same thing. But yeah, I agree. Very good characters on this season. So it's going to be a good finish. I can feel it.
Yeah. So I guess on that note, any final thoughts, like final thoughts for this episode?
Not really. I'm excited to see what happens with that tribe swap. You know, you can get swap screwed. You really can, because there's, as I said, strength in numbers. So we're going to see if someone does indeed get swap screwed or if they're able to dig themselves up, get in with the rest of the crew and move forward in the game. I like swaps because it shows who the true good game players are. Yes, you still can get swap screwed, but if you're able to get yourself out of the hole, you're pretty good in my book.
Yeah, if you're able to get yourself out.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think a number of survivors have actually said it, including Tyson and even Adam. Like, Survivor is such a game of luck.
Yeah,
like, the majority of the game is luck. You know, especially in the swap. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of swaps, although I find them to be a necessary evil.
That's true. I've been swap screwed and I've also had a swap go in my favor. So it just kind of the way the cookie crumbles, but that's Survivor for you. You have to be able to expect the unexpected in that sense. And swaps are just part of the game. However, I think so far this season, there's been less mixing and maneuvering and less shocked moments. So they're getting it good from James.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess on that note, we're going to end it here. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Casey Needs a Co-host. And if you can, please share this as well. On that note, have a good night, guys.